higher? Are you okay?
Well, this will work.
Okay. Do it.
Recording in progress.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Tanya Morrow, the chair of the Rogue Valley Transportation District Board, and I'm going to call our regular meeting of May 27th, 2026 to order with the roll call, please. Lou?
Denise Kraus. Bill Mansfield.
Here.
Tanya Morrow.
Here.
Tyler Jasper.
Here.
Katrina Ernman Newton.
Here.
Dan Davis.
Here.
Carl McNair. There's a form.
All right. We have a new type of agenda, and hopefully everybody is liking it. And if not, we can maybe have a discussion about it later on in the meeting. But next thing up is public comment. So I hear we have somebody on the Zoom that would like to address the board. Stuart Buzo.
Yes.
Go ahead, Stuart.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh.
I do not have any comments. I've just shared a list.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you. We're glad we have folks watching and listening. Okay. We have a consent agenda now. So are there any questions, comments, concerns, changes that anybody would like to make to the 3 items on that? And I guess I would offer that if there's any questions of staff on any of those, we can take them now as well. Go ahead.
I might as well. My question was,
turn his
what
mic
is a consent agenda? My question was, what is a consent agenda? And now my question is, why?
Go ahead.
Either one, it doesn't matter. So usually a consent agenda is a way governing bodies usually present a bunch of different things. So it may be a policy that needs to be accepted. It could be your meeting minutes. It could be other things on the agenda where you've received prior notice to that in your board packet of the information. And what you're doing with the consent is calendar is approving those things and moving them forward with a vote to all of them instead of each individual one. What isn't on the consent agenda is our acceptance of the financial statements. So that is a separate and it's under old business. But the rest of these 3 things, updating our procurement thresholds, our technology service policies, and our board meeting minutes from April 22nd, 2026 are on the consent. So you can actually vote it into one motion.
There usually are routine items that are not in contention.
Housekeeping items is a good way of thinking about it too sometimes.
In other words, it's basically the same thing.
It's to avoid wasting a lot of time fooling with a bunch of routine.
Okay. Bye.
But you can also, just understand, you can move an item off of a consent agenda. So if you see something in there that you don't feel that does need discussion, you can ask the chair to move it off the consent. So it isn't involved, and then you can have that piece, that motion late, or that piece of information later and add it on to more discussion.
But we can ask questions about individual items.
I
on
think we can.
We can do whatever we'd
We
like.
can. Why don't we start with that as a process, that if you have a question of staff at item number 3, go ahead now. And if it doesn't work, we'll change the rule and have you asked to move it to item number 4. Go ahead. Let me see. Wait, I got 2 3s on here. Oops.
And I just shared a document that was to help basically provide some basics about how to process a consent agenda. There are some
it's
ways
here.
that you can
Wow.
move through it, without any objection. We are supposed to basically have notice that there is going to be a consent agenda. And I think that at least for the, board meetings that I've attended, the minutes could probably go under the consent agenda and possibly other items. But during the meeting, the chair would ask if anyone wants to move an item off the agenda. And then we would move it to somewhere else so that we could discuss it. But if there is no objection, in terms of the parliamentary rules, the chair would ask if there's an objection. If there's not, then it's considered to be adopted.
Well, we're gonna try a little bit of our own process, just allowing the board to ask questions of those consent agenda items of staff. And like I said, we'll see how it goes. You had a question?
Well, yeah, not major, but just a couple of things came up that I was wondering in the, this is the one on technology. So I just was curious about, start with the easy one first. Data retention retained indefinitely. That seems like a long time. Do we have the means to do that? And I know it goes down into departments having specific purposes, but I'm just a question about, I haven't ever heard it done that way. So
Sure. So, good evening, Chair Morrow and established Board of Directors. My name is Matt Christensen. I am the Technology Services Manager for RVTD. Ms. Kraus, for your, the basis of that policy is such that we have an established retention of basically everything in perpetuity, right? We keep everything indefinitely, unless specific things are identified per department or per type of data that needs a specific retention schedule. This just gives us a blanket overall thing that says if nobody says anything, we're going to keep it for as long as we possibly can, like indefinitely. So there are things that we have retention schedules for that get purged on a regular basis. And then there are those that don't, and we essentially keep them until we start running out of space and decide what we want to do with them at that point.
Yeah.
This is just in lieu of anyone who has an established. We err on the side of keeping everything just in case.
okay.
Yep.
Right. The second question I have is just curious about AI and if you have any opinions or thoughts about how RVTD might employ AI in the near future.
Sure. So again, this is a brand new policy for us. It was in this list. And we borrowed on a lot of different public agencies and other best practices that we saw online for things about that. I am of the opinion that the use of AI is okay for RVTD business as long as we're not putting in any data that is confidential or could compromise our passenger information or our member information or our employee details. In the same way that I look at, would I post something on Facebook? I wouldn't post anything that isn't already public information. In that case, I would maintain that I would not be putting data into AI that wasn't public info. How we might use it internally is probably a much larger topic.
Are we now?
So there are some departments that are using some versions of that to do that, people to write memos and to take a look at some of the, I may or may not be doing it for the public at this point. I'd have to ask planning for that specifically. But there are use of it internally, right? And the main guideline that we're providing is that there shouldn't be any sensitive data going into those systems. We do not have an established contract with any AI provider. We don't have a set of business associates agreements or any confidentiality contracts with any AI provider. So everything that's being done would be done with a commercial version, something that's free to the public to use.
Okay.
And again, our guidelines are as such that we would say you can use those tools, but we don't want you to put sensitive data into them about our passengers, our members, our customers, our employees, anything like that. Anything that's proprietary data should not be going into those types of systems. If we choose to come up with a contract with an AI company that would allow us all the provisions to secure that data in our own sort of sandboxed area, that might be something that we would explore later on.
Thank you.
Welcome.
I consider what you're talking about, I call it phony. I've got
You're on. You're good.
Am I okay? I call it phony information, and I'm very opposed to using it because there are dangers to it. I know, I know not everybody agrees with me on that, but at the very least, what you can do for us is anytime you use it, I'm opposed to you using it, but if you're going to do it because the majority wants it, I think you need to let us know that this is based on phony data.
Yeah, there are a lot of policies out there we saw from public agencies that require them to cite
Yeah.
the fact that they've used AI to develop or edit or even do rough drafts for data that's being released to the public or internally.
Phony data can be very dangerous.
Absolutely. And I would also say that anything that gets used, again, as we were talking about in the policy, these shouldn't be making important decisions, right? We're not going to rely on AI to make a decision about someone who is or isn't eligible, able to ride our service, or any other decisions that should be made by a human, right?
And I intend to vote against any contract that you might propose with any kind of a phony data company.
And again, at this point, we have no actual contracts that we're looking at or anything like that to enter into any AI
Thank you.
maneuvers.
Thank you. And I want to register that I don't agree with you in using it at all, but the majority may approve of it for all I know.
What I understand is maybe planning's using it just like anybody uses the internet in Google searches and stuff like that. Like it's not the generative AI stuff and not a particular product that we're purchasing to use, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
That's correct. Yeah, we've not purchased or entered into any agreement with any AI company.
This is coming in front of us a lot in contract language. So what we're seeing is from the CCOs, from the union, from others, that they want certain language in the contracts now that addresses the use of AI and making sure that the data that we have is protected from the use.
And you will alert us about every piece of that stuff, I presume.
Yes.
Okay.
Just confirming, we didn't adopt in this policy any requirement that any staff use or the district's use generally is identified as being used or being developed through the use of AI. We didn't adopt that part yet.
I'm sorry, could you restate? I didn't.
You know, you mentioned that there are some policies where it requires people to.
Oh, to
say that they've
cite.
used it, yeah, to cite it.
Yeah, no, that was not included in the policy. If we, as an organization or you as the board, choose that anything that we produce, publish, push to the public, or whatever, wanted to adopt that as part of that policy. Again, I saw that many times in many public agencies saying that you needed to cite essentially that you use that, even if you just use it to edit, right? Just check my grammar or whatever.
Oh, no.
Well, I think grammar, so there are some pieces that it does check your grammar. It also tells you, gives you suggestions, so we haven't, that's what I use the AI mostly for, is I have a grammar piece that goes through.
Shame on you.
Well, you have to understand what it is, Bill. I'm not producing anything. It's checking against some of the things that I say, like that isn't correct grammar using, et cetera. But there's a piece that, like, I'll give you an example. Community Transit Association of America, they take a lot of their data and they put it into an AI use where they go up against all the national pieces of ridership, et cetera, and they'll produce a document that says, this is the trend that you're seeing in America, and they cite exactly where that comes from the National Transit Database, from, Federal Transit Administration, or wherever they're getting their data from. So that has to be shown where the data is coming from. It's kind of like Cliff Notes. There's all different kinds of AIs. And I agree with you. There's a lot of phony stuff that is produced by AI, by artificial intelligence. But what we're using it for isn't that. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Any more questions?
I just want to make sure that I've heard everything correctly. So currently there are some individuals in RVTD staff who are using some AI tools like personally, but RVTD has not entered into any kind of contractual agreement, any kind of business agreement. And this change in the policy specifically prohibits the entry of certain types of information, I noticed, into unapproved AI systems. I assume that's because we don't have any that are officially approved.
That is absolutely correct, yes.
And in the event that we did have something that was approved, we would want to modify this language because we would still probably be prohibiting at least some types of information.
That is correct. Everything you said is accurate.
Awesome. Final point. I noticed that this also kind of preemptively requires human oversight over anything we choose, should we choose to use a generative AI as opposed to a personal use of a generative AI tool.
Correct.
Cool. Generative AI is not my favorite kind of AI. As somebody who is in information sciences, my favorite kind of AI is discriminative AI, which sounds meaner, but it really lets you kind of parse big data sets so that you can discriminate them into individual units. And I can see work for analysis and other analytical work. That's where I'm the most excited about artificial intelligence tools, as opposed to generative AI. And Bill, if you ever want to hate on it together, I'm down.
I didn't hear
Said
that.
if you ever want to get together and hate on it together, she's up for
Okay,
that.
I'd like to.
She says she's down.
I've tried to listen to people try to defend it, and they're unable to defend it. And moreover, the wealthy people that have developed it are pretty short on moral conscience. If you check into talking about them, you'll find they don't have very much interest in the public interest.
Go ahead, Tyler.
It does seem like the board has an interest in the organization's use of AI. So if there are any possible meaningful steps that you're looking at moving forward regarding the use of AI, we'd probably enjoyed hearing about it.
Absolutely, yeah, and it has been a topic of discussion a little bit during our management meetings about how we would potentially do this. This is basically just a first step in getting a policy in place, notifying our staff, because again, we as an organization cannot prevent our staff in a lot of cases from popping open their phone and typing in a bunch of stuff into ChatGPT. So we want to make sure that we're educating them on the proper use of these systems, and specifically not entering data in there that should not be disseminated outside the organization. So again, this is a basic starting point. We'd hope that this evolves over time as the AI evolves and as the tools we want to use evolve. We're seeing everything from, your PDF reader having AI built into it, into the entire Office suite having, AI built into it. So we're very cautious about what we are enabling and allowing staff to be able to do. Again, without a policy written, though, I can't say you can't do this. And so that's kind of where we're starting from at this point. Just gives us a baseline.
That makes sense. Does our copy of Microsoft Office today, is it bundled with Copilot already?
No, we don't pay for the full Copilot license, which is an additional cost. All of Office has this rudimentary Copilot that's sort of built into it. The licenses that we would obtain if we were to do this would allow that to search throughout all of our Office documents and OneDrives and the whole thing, which contain sensitive data. And so we are very, very cautious about allowing those things to get in their hands into the data that we have, specifically things in the call center where we've got PHI.
Thank you.
Yep.
Go ahead, Dan.
Well, I admit that my technology knowledge is somewhat out of date, but as I understand artificial intelligence, it can be very invasive, and any place a computer can be accessed with information on it of any kind. That's how they have this intelligence, is by being able to search the entire internet, as I understand it, to find out information and be able to put together documentation that's artificially generated. And which means if they were to gain access to our computer systems, they would have access to all of the information that's on our computer systems. And I guess my question is, how do we protect against that, or am I mistaken in my understanding?
No, I think that your thought process is correct, right? Like if you provide data to an AI tool, the AI tool can choose to use it however it likes. In a lot of cases, it will be trained on that data. So
I'm not talking about entering something into an AI system. I'm talking about the invasive nature of AI to search the internet and worm its way, so to speak, into information systems for different companies and institutions.
Sure. So most of our perimeter firewalls prevent accessibility from the general internet, right? So unless it's going to break in, which there hasn't been any established instances of that happening, where an AI tool is out there breaking into private systems to access data. The only way for that to happen would be if we were to say, disseminate that information into an AI tool, that it could then use that data to, you know, to understand or to create something based on that, right? So like AI can crawl our website right now. If you go ask AI what time the Route 10 is going to be in Ashland, it will tell you, right? That's public data, and AI has already crawled all of that public data. But could it find out whether or not you are a member of our TransLink service? Well, AI doesn't have any access to that sort of data, so it can't infiltrate into our systems to be able to do that. If we are negligent and we allow data to get put into these AI tools, or we enter in an agreement with an AI tool and we don't have guardrails in place that prevent that AI from using that data anywhere else but in our own systems, then we run that risk of having that data be accessible from the outside world, right? Anybody else can use it at that point. So yeah, there are guardrails in place. There are contracts and ways that we sandbox these types of systems. But the first step is basically not letting it into our network without a clear understanding of what it's going to be doing, how it's going to be training, and what it's doing publicly with that data. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. But my understanding, when my computer gets invaded by some virus of some kind, I didn't give it permission. And
Sure.
I have virus software that's supposed to safeguard me from that happening.
Yeah, I mean, again,
They're getting so clever.
this is a real threat.
Get around all the safeguards. And I guess that just says there's not much we can do about it.
Well, there's a lot we can do, and we do a lot.
Yeah.
We are constantly working on our security externally and internally across the board. And every organization is looking at this every day, right? You've got new vulnerabilities that come out every day. We are patching systems continuously. We're keeping our ear to the of what's happening as far as like vulnerabilities and things that are happening out there in the world that affect our security internally, just like most other companies are. So yeah, it is a constant battle, and it is something that you just have to continually to keep up on.
Madam Chair, I request that item 3B be pulled to be voted upon.
Okay, we'll take it off the consent agenda.
I have one more question. Just wondering, I think you mentioned earlier that I think it's probably good to start with more restrictive policy and then easier to open it later than to add restrictions later. But did you say you had seen some examples where it would be documented or referenced that AI was used in this? I know there are tools that say this was 96% AI, but those are not even very accurate. But it would be nice to know that, oh yeah, because people read it and go, well, is this AI or not? You know, that's always a question now. Sure. So it would be nice to be referenced that way.
Yeah, and I agree. We're open to suggestions for making changes to that policy. If we as an organization decide that anything that gets put through in that case needs to have some sort of label on it, whether that's in our newsletter or on our website or even internal memos, I would think we would entertain that.
Okay, well, thank you for your time in the hot seat, but
You're welcome.
you might stick around for a minute.
Absolutely.
And we'll obviously be coming back to this.
Sure.
But does anybody have any questions about the meeting minutes or the procurement thresholds? I don't know if that's in your wheelhouse or not, but okay. So are there any objections to the consent agenda?
I object to B.
No, we're going to move it out. I agreed to that. So the consent agenda now consists of A and C. Okay, hearing none, we'll approve the consent agenda. All right. And that will go under new business. So we'll, in the meantime, go on to our action items, which would be our grants. Thank you.
Okay, and I'll go ahead and present on this. I just need to share my screen again. Okay. Good evening, Paige West, Senior Planner here at RVTD, and we are requesting approval of grant applications. We brought this to the previous board meeting to describe how we had to have an initial application submission in order for us to be qualified, which unfortunately fell just prior to the April board meeting. But we wanted to bring it to this meeting for official approval. Unlike federal grants, when we submit a federal grant, they actually want a resolution with the match requirement set aside as part of our budget. We will still be doing that as part of our application if we're awarded, but ODOT actually doesn't require a resolution in that way. They do require that we have approval, and that's what we're asking for tonight. So these are the same grants that we submitted with our initial application. I have heard back on the low emission bus refurbishment for the small urban competitive transit grant. That is not eligible for federal funding, and so they're going to push that into the second round, which is the statewide competitive transit grant. That has some state funding available, and that will be competing against other requests for the statewide pot, which is the STIF funding, the STIF discretionary funding. So that unfortunately will not be eligible for what I've really found in my research to be the more convenient one for us to be able to receive funds through. However, the low emission bus replacement project is eligible. They had a few requests for additional information. This is still going to go into this first round, and then if it is not awarded, it will be also transitioned into the statewide competitive transit grant, and it will be eligible for both the federal and the state STIF discretionary funds. The applications for the small urbans are due on Friday, so we are ready and poised. I know, Katrina, you asked last meeting, are we ready? And I actually have the grant completely ready to go with all the follow-up information. I just need to hit the submit button after tonight's meeting. And that would just be for the low emission bus replacement application, because the other one for the bus refurbishment has already been essentially slipped to the second application process. So what we're asking for tonight is an official approval of these applications being submitted.
Thank you, Paige. Any questions of Paige? Go ahead.
Paige, can you explain what you mean by slipping this one application to the second application process? What is that?
Yeah, so there's two concurrent buckets of funding and application process that they were doing. This first one, the Small Urban Competitive Transit Grant, is only for agencies like RVTD. There's 7 of us around the state. It's a much more lucrative process for us because the competition is small. They said that if any of those applications are considered not eligible or are not awarded, they will automatically be submitted into the second round, which is a different application process, but I don't have to fill out another application. Woohoo. It's called the Statewide Competitive Transit Grant, and it's federal funds and STIF discretionary funds. The difference really is that it's competing against all transit providers around the state for all different kinds of projects, operations, bus replacements, facilities. It's definitely going to be more competitive. But what ODOT has said is allowing for us applicants to say, hey, if you don't make it in the first round, we will automatically submit your application into the second round for you. So that's what I meant by slipping, is they're submitting it essentially into that second round because they've determined it's not eligible for federal funds. Which, Julie, I don't know if that's something you want to take up with CTAA, but they believe that refurbishment of buses is not a eligible project.
Right.
Let's
No,
pick it up.
we will. There's a couple things we'll be taking up in the bill.
I don't have a question, just a compliment. Paige, woo! That was not a long turnaround, and that was why I had asked about it last time too. It was just that didn't seem like a lot of time to be ready. So nicely done, y'all.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Anybody willing to make a motion to approve the 2027-2029 ODOT grant applications?
So move.
Okay. Any further discussion or any discussion at all? Seeing none, let's do a roll call. Thank you, Blue.
Denise Kraus,
Yes.
Bill Mansfield,
Yes,
Tanya Morrow,
Yes.
Tyler Jasper,
Yes.
Katrina Ernman Newton,
Yes.
and Dan Davis.
Yes.
6 yes votes.
Great. Okay, we'll move on to new business. And now we've got A and B. A is the May 19th, 2026 special levies results. Oops.
I'm sorry, can I interject one quick question? Is there going to be money for these grants?
Yes.
Well, there is money. There is a bill that's moving forward to a reauthorization. Unfortunately, one of the amendments has been that sanctuary states won't receive any federal funding. More to come. It's just hit the floor of the House. It's called the Build America 250. And in that, there are a lot of things that we've asked for, like taking our funding for small urbans up to, instead of a match of 50-50, it'll be 80-20, where federal government gives us 80, we only had to pay 20% match. There's a whole bunch of different things that got moved forward that we're excited about, but I don't know where it's going to end. So we're watching it closely, and there's actually tomorrow, there is a meeting on this, and we'll have more information, but it's hard to say. I mean, they're hoping to get this passed through rather quickly. There is an increase in federal dollars, though, for operating, which is nice.
So while we're on the topic, is that a newer bill that dropped, or is this the first one that dropped? Because we heard at MPO that there's now two. Which one is this
So
one?
they dropped one, and there's been some amendments to it. So now they're working through the amendments.
This is the, okay.
But this money that we're talking about is part of that, I believe, Paige, maybe I'm incorrect. Some of it isn't, but some of it is. The Small Urban Competitive Grant, that isn't money that the state already has, that's future.
This would be 27, 29.
Okay,
Yes,
so it's future, so it's part of that bill. We have to take baby steps and just keep working towards this, and it's important. So we'll see where it lands.
I appreciate your efforts and staff's efforts in making that happen.
Hi, Kelly.
Hi, Chair Morrow and Board. My name is Kelly Matting. I'm the Operations Manager here. Just want to congratulate everyone who participated, who did all the work, and those who voted for the levy that passed. Paige, you want to go to the next slide?
Hold on, let me see. Gotta get my mouse in the right place. There we go.
So this is, what's incredible about this is if you look at the percentage that RVTD got the vote, you can see it going up from 61% in 2016 to 63% in 2026. And one of the reasons, and I think there are a variety of reasons why this levy passed. You want to go to the next slide? is there was a considerable effort to get the word out about this levy. And I think that coupled with the fact that RVTD, our general manager, has worked hard to make RVTD a household name. And listening to, I went to a lot of events and people walked by our table and talked about RVTD. And it was amazing how the vast majority of people that walked by were very supportive of RVTD, no matter sort of where they were on the economic spectrum. Some people thinking, transportation is almost a right. You need to be able to have transportation to have a good society, to people who were just like, I just need to get around to my job, and I hope the levy passes. And so there was considerable effort by not only, I think, probably everyone in this room, but lots and lots of people out there in Jackson County who helped get this to the finish line successfully. So there were a lot of efforts, and I think we're all thankful for them and what they yielded. So Paige, next slide. So, we took a day to revel in the success and celebrate, and then we were like, okay, we need to get going on what we're going to do next. And so this is kind of a timeline for the next steps. So you guys are meeting on the 24th of June. At that meeting, you'll have the budget to adopt. That budget is a with the levy budget. And I have to give a shout out to our finance manager who basically the budgets are big, complicated, and our finance manager, Debbie Wilbur, basically put two together. She put one for no levy passing, and she put one together for the levy passing. And so she did yeoman's work to get that done. So you'll see that coming forward to you. And then the board, when you were discussing like the levy language, what you wanted was something that wasn't specific, because you wanted to go out to the public and say, okay, the levy has passed. This is a 5-year levy. Let's look at what your priorities are and do some more public outreach. We did some before, and that public outreach yielded, first priority Saturday service, second priority longer nights, and then, increasing the frequency of the 10. And while we can't do all those things, I think the board wanted us to go back out and look to see what the public wanted again. So we're going to be doing that June through August. We'll have a board meeting in July where we'll review current and future cost of service, so you can get an idea of sort of, again, what those service improvements will accomplish and how much those are going to cost. So you can make a decision on where we're going to go. So that will also take place in August, where you'll have a public hearing to adopt those service additions. We have a scheduled board meeting in September, and if you, for whatever reason, can't get through making that decision in August, we also have September as an option. And then we need September and October to hire the drivers and hire the staff that we need to accomplish those service improvements, to get them ready for new service beginning around November. November is that key month because that's when we get our revenue from the levy and for our property tax. And so that's kind of the chronology of events that we are recommending moving forward with. And that is the extent of my presentation. Do you have any questions, comments, or feedback?
Yeah, I was just noting that we didn't have when we would be collecting on there. So thank you for clarifying that, because I hate to have to wait. I mean, I know we got a lot of good public feedback already. I think we all know that we want to put in Saturday service as soon as possible. And unless we had a lovely loan at 0% interest that we could go ahead and start it now and then, collect it all later, I guess we can't. So I just throw out that frustration.
Sure. So apparently there's no way we can improve the service until November, is that right?
Yeah.
That's right. Because that's when we actually see the revenue
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
with the property tax
Thank you,
collection.
that makes, now we're clear, now I'm clear.
Okay.
Thank you.
I agree, it is frustrating. I wish we could start service earlier. I'm really happy that we can start service in November and that we can improve the service that we are offering now, which will look like whatever the board decides that looks like. So I think we will get out there, get some public feedback, and bring that back to you for some decisions.
I can't tell you, people are already submitting comments to us through our website, telling us these are things I'd like to see. We're collecting all of that information up, and I'm getting phone calls. And of course, all the writers out there are asking the questions. And, you know, I keep telling them, be sure and participate in our outreach when we open the floodgates and start having these open houses and the different things that give them the opportunity, and let the board know, because if you're silent, then it'll be decided by the board on the best information we have.
Do you think we have enough education? I mean, we don't have a PR campaign anymore, but do we have enough information out there to let them know that we can't do anything until November and why? I think we should probably do that.
I think that's a good idea. One of the things that I've been talking to Paige and also to Adam about is possibly trying to get a newsletter out as soon as possible. It talks about that. Now, it costs us a lot, and the question is, do we do the newsletter with, we need your feedback, or do we do and this is why we can't do it, or do we do the newsletter with like, this is what we're going to do too? So we have to weigh this. So there's a couple different ways. I know Channel 5 this morning did an interview with me and talked to me about it. And one of the things that they were going to stress, and I think we can use our local media to do that by appearing and asking for feedback from the community and telling them why we can't do that. And I've explained that with the station this morning. I think that we can also put things on social media ourselves and say, this is why we can't move forward. We're educating our own employees who are desperately wanting us to put service back so they can come back to work. Again, it all comes back to cash flow and how soon we can get our funding. And, you know, I'm still have a little bit of anxiety at this point, and I'll talk a little bit about it in my comments when I give you my report. But there's that federal piece that scares me to death. We haven't received our federal funds for this year yet. We're being told that it's most likely we'll get them in October. And we're keeping our fingers crossed, because if we don't get those federal funds in October, we're gonna have serious problems. We're not gonna be able to do any of this, because that is in our budget. You know, we're assuming we're going to get that because it's been obligated to us. It's in, you know, they've already given us the number. It's just, are we going to get it on time, and can cash flow carry us? And so for our employees right now, it is, do not spend a dime unless we absolutely have to. What is it we are doing? How do we roll all of these pieces out in a timely manner so that we're not wasting money in the wrong section? When I say wasting money, all of this, of course, the money that we're spending is important, but can it be held off until we know we have the federal funds, or we know that we have these funds? So we're just trying to weigh all of this and keep that cash flow going. So when you look at your financial report, you see that we have a cash balance. Yeah, that's got to last us until October.
So the newsletter costs what, about $10,000, 10?
It depends on how we do it.
Yeah.
So it depends on if we do the publication ourselves in-house and we mail it out versus we have somebody else do it, like we have Paper and String in the past. If we do something that's digital, that's different. It's a lot cheaper, and it's something we can probably do. So we'll probably make a first swing or first attack at a digital level using Facebook and other. We also have a digital server where we send out newsletters and stuff to people that have signed up. We can do that too. And then trying to just like get on the different local television stations and getting those interviews are very, very important. So, and then going out again and talking to the public, riding the bus, giving them information is important. So we can still do those kind of things.
Okay, Bill.
Yeah, I would repeat the kudos to those of you who worked on this and made it so successful. But to me, the way this passed in such a generous way indicates that the people in our district, the public, is now aware of the importance of a public transportation system. Isn't that delightful to know that not only we know it, but now they know it? I just think that's a delightful piece of information.
That is, and
True.
go ahead. I'll weigh in and say that the Political Action Committee did an incredible job of organizing the community and utilizing young volunteers, which, I think can make a difference to speaking to the general public out there. But I'll also echo what I said at the party, and that is that each of the last two campaigns, I wasn't able to work on this one very much, but each of the last two gave me that incredible feeling that you were explaining and describing, which is to know that our community really cares about this service and our community. And you just get that when you're out there at the table. So it's always a fun thing to do every 5 years. But anyway, anything else?
I think part of the reason the community cares is that I think RVTD as a whole has done a very good job for the community. And that's one of the big reasons, or maybe the biggest reason, why they do care.
Thank you for that. I think that felt like we did a really good job, that y'all did a really good job of getting customer or ridership data before. And I feel like we pretty much know what needs to be done. Saturday service, extending the hours, decreasing frequency. So I don't know how much priority needs to still be put there. Also still accepting information, but I think the thing that people are going to really have a harder time wrapping their heads around is why aren't we doing something sooner? So I think that really needs, because even I do. I have a problem with, understanding why can't we do something sooner. So I think that might be a good place to focus.
And we can absolutely do that. And the people, I will say that the people I've talked to, when I've said, just like Bill asked, well, why can't you start till November? And I've said, because that's when property taxes come in. And every single person I've talked to has said, oh, yeah, that makes sense. You can't put the service back until you have the money. I'm like, yeah, we don't have the money yet. So I think you're right. Articulating that and getting that information out there, I think for people it will make sense. They just don't know. And so they think, we voted and it passed. And so why isn't it starting right now? And so as long as we can get that information out, which we will do, and work on that, and we can keep you posted and let you know where we're putting information out on the website and a variety of other places to let people know. And then just letting people know who are riding our bus. So getting that information on our bus video, like our bus TVs.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different ways we can provide information to both our customers and the general public.
And also having a positive message about it, because it'll be like a focus on what's coming.
Right.
With November, it's going to be, so get people kind of gearing up and looking forward and knowing that it's coming, so that's
right.
Positive focus.
Will do.
Yeah.
It is a positive thing. So I think we can be very positive about it, that it is. Thank you very much for supporting transit, for all the people that use it and all the people that will use it. And this is what's coming. So we can do that. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on and back to technology services policies. So I'm assuming that staff wasn't asking for the board to approve this, but I guess the board is now taking an opportunity to either give you feedback or deciding whether they want to vote for it or not.
Absolutely. And one of the things we did, we had a set of policies that were sent to you a few years ago.
Right.
It was a single policy handbook. And one of the things we did this time is we broke those apart into individually addressable policies. So that would allow us easy ability to make a change without having to do an overall assignment of the policies again. So again, if you so choose, you could accept all of them in full, or you could accept individual ones as we move forward, or again, provide feedback for changes that you'd like to be made. And we'd be happy to go back and make those changes and bring them in individually into the next meeting.
You don't have a deadline to adopt this yet?
We don't currently have a deadline, no. We have some initiatives that are waiting for these things to be adopted. But again, those aren't anything that are holding us up from, normal business.
All right. Any further discussion about?
I just want to kudos. I really appreciate in section 1.5 that if you're going to have a technology project, it needs to go to the technology services department before you go any further with it.
Yes.
That's really good.
Yeah.
I can feel my inner IT guy rejoicing. So that seems like a sensible way to do it. And that you've got something about identity and access management, because passcodes are getting more and more prolific, and having something that broadly captures that this is something to be aware of, especially if things go to the need for a single sign-on system or other kinds of authentication. I'm just really I'm proud of our little district for looking forward into how we're engaging with complex technologies.
Yeah, and we mandate, again, SSO in most instances. We
Yeah.
want to have a single thing. Just allows us to be able to control that access. If somebody chooses to leave the organization, I have one place where I can deactivate their access, and it proliferates to everything that we have integrated with it. So from an ease of management, it helps a lot, but it also secures us, does up to standards is what we're trying to do.
Yep. One question is, I noticed we don't have anything about WCAG and the accessibility guidelines in this piece. Is that probably in other policies somewhere?
It's likely in another policy somewhere. Yeah, I don't have anything that has anything to do with public facing, marketing, or any sort of outreach. There will likely be some of those policies in other departments.
Okay.
It's in our Title VI plan.
Oh, there you go. Thank you,
Thank you,
Paige.
Paige. Cool.
Who's our identity and access management vendor?
So we use Azure AD. We're a hybrid. So we have internal systems and we use Microsoft's Azure. And again, it allows us to interface with any third-party vendor that accepts that SSO and allows us to manage those identities across all of our platforms. So slowly moving toward that. We still have systems out there that are using their own management systems. And so just again, anything we bring on new, we mandate has to be integrated with our SSO.
I wish to move that we approve the policy, and then I wish to move that we amend the policy by removing section 2.10. And my argument in favor of removing it is that staff has done a good job, of course, in trying to protect us from the toxicity of artificial intelligence. I appreciate that you've done a good job, but I don't think we should be approving it at all. And I'm hoping that the rest of the board will agree with me. So I move that that section be eliminated.
So as a procedural matter, you want to,
But we vote on the motion to amend first.
okay, that's, okay. All right, we can take that up. Anybody want to discuss the removal of 2.10?
I'd like to make one more argument. That is, if we find later that it's not as toxic as I think it is, we can always include it back in.
Go ahead, Katrina.
Given that this is for currently unapproved systems, there are no approved systems yet for AI usage by RVTD. I would be in favor of keeping this here as a training tool, because it is something that can be used to indicate for people who are currently experimenting with AI tools on their own time professionally, how they can do so more responsibly and more cautiously. I feel like that is, again, sort of like some of the other language in this policy. It's forward-looking and attempting to mitigate harm, given that these tools are proliferating very quickly and they're being adopted at a very quick rate by individuals. I think that having a trusted voice like your employer or RVTD as a trusted voice in the community say, these kinds of information are very dangerous to feed to AI, do not do it, is worth having with the weight of policy. Even if we ultimately someday need like a 2.11 where we decide, and these are the kinds of generative tools or other kinds of AI tools that we are making the decision not to utilize when we have something more formal and ongoing. But given that this is basically guidance on, for unapproved tools, here are things that you still can't do. I think it's valuable.
Seconded.
What she said or what he, okay.
Oh, yes, what Katrina said.
Well, I'll also sort of agree on the same lines. I mean, this to me is not a grant of discretion to use AI. It is actually a explicit limitation on how the district and staff and when the staff can use AI. And I think we need something in writing that tells the staff and everybody that we do have limitations there. Now, I think to address Bill's point, what we might do instead, although I'm not going to necessarily propose it, is just amend it to indicate that the district will seek board approval if it wants to approve any AI system. So I'll leave it. I will vote against the amendment as it is right now. So
Let me make one additional argument in favor. Let's just analyze the language itself. Artificial intelligence means something that's not real. Why don't I mean the whole concept smells? Why don't we use real intelligence instead of artificial intelligence?
I'll jump into that argument to only say this. I agree with you about the AI products that are generative out there. But the problem is, I think one of our problems is defining what AI is in this context, which we haven't done yet, because when you're using even word processing and it corrects your spelling or it proposes a new grammatical way of saying what you said, that could be technically AI. So that's our problem. Some of those tools are just standardized right now and useful. It's the other stuff that you're talking about where you're actually putting data in and asking it to come up with a plan or whatever it might be, I think. That's just my...
Let me make one more argument, if I may, and then I'll stop. Let's just analyze the language of this 2.10. It establishes requirements for the ethical use of artificial intelligence. You were arguing that it doesn't really bring in artificial intelligence, and that's just plain incorrect. This 2.10 does bring in artificial intelligence. And then it attempts in a kind of a funny way to protect us from the evils of it.
So what I was getting at is that without a policy, it's possible that staff would go out there on their own and they've, got an access to Claude or whatever it is and put in information about planning or whatever it is to come up with their product as opposed to not using Claude to do it. I feel like this limits and tells them they cannot do that, even though the district has not purchased or authorized Claude, even in that circumstance. That's what I'm worried about.
So you can say something if
No,
you'd like.
I would agree with you that is the intent of the policy,
Right. is
to prevent staff from using AI systems in a way that is detrimental to the district. In lieu of having a policy at all, we would restrict all use would be another way of looking at it.
How would you define it?
Excuse me?
How would you define it then, though? Yeah.
It's a very good point. I mean,
It's going to be difficult.
It is. And again, because you said the proliferation of these tools embedded in all of the things that we are doing, in our phone systems, in our cell phones, in our word processors. I mean, there are this is the way that technology is going, unfortunately, and we need to provide some sort of guidance to our staff to let them know. Every time that you search Google, you get an AI summary of what the answer is. So whether or not you think you're actually using it, you are using AI every time you type something into Google.
Yep.
So there's nothing that we can do technologically to prevent those things from happening. I can block all of the commercial websites that have AI in them, but a lot of the tools that are then being used still have these processes being built in. Unfortunately, it is just the way the technology is going. And again, simply we're trying to provide some level of accountability for staff, some sort of ability for them to think ahead about what they're doing with the tools that are being provided, but also we're mandating that these tools are not going to be used to do things like legal determination or employment actions or disciplinary actions, right? We're not letting this take over the decisions that should be being made by human beings, by employees. And so, again, those are just sort of guardrails that we're trying to establish moving forward with this technology. And it's going to change rapidly. And I would expect that these types of policies will be changing very, very quickly. I see some real good uses that we as a district have for AI. There's a lot of things that it could do that I think would help us out a lot. But I also see that there are some things where it could be very dangerous for what we're doing. And so we want to be able to wade into this water tentatively and figure out what's going to work best for us. And again, if the board so chooses, having a provision in here that requires board approval for any adoption of AI tools, I think would be perfectly reasonable.
So you believe that phony intelligence is better than real intelligence? Is that what I'm hearing you say?
I believe that computers can make decisions quicker and in some cases just as accurate as a human being can in certain circumstances.
Look what the electronic world has done to us already.
I admit there are lots.
They screwed us up royally.
There are lots of negatives also, but there are some positives. And again, if you're talking about wading through large data sets, if you're talking about running multiple hundreds or thousands of scenarios over and over and over again to come up with the best run board, the best schedule for our buses, things like that, there are potentials for this technology to help us provide better service to to our citizens.
So we're stuck with it. All we can do is try to protect us against the toxic part. Is that right?
I would agree in some cases, yes. Yes, but I also think that we can say things just like we have, where we're not going to allow it to make decisions that we as humans are accountable for those decisions.
What a shame that our world has become like you say.
Good, Denise.
So, yeah, it's unfortunate how AI is rolling out without regulations, but I think you can't have an IT policy without addressing AI because it is, whether we like it or not, it's our reality. But I think that it's really important that we regulate it. And so this is our first attempt at it, and I think that that's good. But we need to also keep an eye on it as things change very quickly.
Absolutely.
So I would be in favor of having that in there.
I noticed that it says governance review prior to the procurement or use of AI systems. Does governance review indicate strictly that it would come to the board ahead of time already? Or does that need to be more specifically stated?
It could absolutely, if we wanted to state it specifically, you wanted to the board. Governance just basically means that we have established policies and that the adoption of this AI would adhere to those already existing policies. Again, so you could, if, for example, it would adhere to our identity management policy or would adhere to our encryption policies or, other things like that. So just making sure that whatever we do purchase has gone through, massive review, legal review, contractual review to make sure that we fully understand what we're getting involved with. But again, I think if adding a provision for the board approval, justifying the business use case and the way that we would use it, I think would be perfectly acceptable.
I think that would be very valuable. As I read this, at first I thought it said that the use or entry of this kind of data into an AI system is prohibited. That's what I read the first time through.
Yes, the confidential information is specifically what we're saying is the entry of this type of information, which would include personally identifiable information, health information, criminal justice information, PCI information, personnel records, attorney-client privileged information, sensitive security information, proprietary confidential. I mean, all of that information is prohibited in this policy from being entered into AI. This protects that confidential data, our customers, our employees, from that data being disseminated outside of our organization. The same way it would be prohibited from posting on Facebook or someone taking our client database and posting it on the internet somewhere else.
Is it reasonably possible to prevent the access by an AI system to this kind of information? I mean, we're saying we're not going to enter it. Nobody in the district should enter this type of information into an AI system.
Right.
But can we prevent them from gaining access to our information?
We can and do, yes.
Talk about that.
Yeah. They're the same way we prohibit, bad actors or hackers or anything else from attempting to access our internal systems, ransomware gangs that want to encrypt our data and extort it from us, people who want to breach our customer databases and leak those to the internet. We take the same level of security in those cases that we would against AI.
And all you can do is try
We put our best effort forward, yes.
to make that happen and make the security operable and effective.
Correct, yes. We follow best practices, we follow national guidelines and best practices, everything that we can to prevent against infiltration into the network from anything.
I can guarantee you, if I want to get on my computer, they practically extract my blood from me. I'm always complaining to them because we have to authenticate everything, multiple times. And it's a time suck sometimes, but if that's what we need to protect us, we will do it. I mean, I think about things like there's so many places where it's information about RVTD is posted. I'll give you an example. On the union website, if you go to the union website, you will see every contract statewide is on that website, and anybody can get into it and download it. There's data that AI can take. So, for me to put the union contract into some kind of AI software and say, tell me what's wrong with this contract, and it'll highlight everything that's wrong with the contract, it's already out there. That's nothing new. So I'm not giving it any information that it doesn't already have. I don't worry, I didn't do that.
But it is also your discretion to recognize the data that's in there is either public or not public. And you get, based on our policy, we get to tell you, you don't get to put data in it that's not public.
Right. And so I think that there's different kinds of AI software or different things that it does. And so I think what Matt is trying to do here is make sure that whatever software we're buying, because when you look at software, I just came back from Omaha and there were software vendors all over the place and AI all over the place. And buy our product, it has an AI component. I'm going, yeah, I don't think I'm interested at this point. Just because I don't know enough about it, it's dangerous to me. I'm going to take the expert at it. I'm telling you, you're an expert. I hope you are. To go out and look at it and look at all the legality of it. And then I'm going to ask our attorney to look at it. And then the board is going to be presented with a piece of software that says, this is what it does. This is how the AI piece of it is used. Yay or nay?
If it's any consolation to the board members, my day job is doing security information technology for healthcare, and the 2.10 section, this is pretty boilerplate. This is pretty standard across most organizations on, this is a method of protection that we need. So like this policy checks out to me.
Thank you for
It
speaking
doesn't
up.
satisfy me at all, the fact that everybody does it.
But
And that's okay.
can I just say to Bill that unfortunately, we're faced with the fact that this is proliferating
Yeah.
throughout society and we don't have control of it. Our
Right.
society does not have control of it. And all of us are becoming afraid of what it may do to our lives and our, progeny's lives. We just don't know. But I think we can't ignore the fact that it's out there and we need to put some restrictions on it, at least as appears here in 2.10.
That's a good argument.
Okay, without beating a dead horse, I'm just going to say, if you want to help start organizing a boycott where there's more than just RVTD throwing in the towel on it, I'm with you, okay? But just us throwing in the towel on it, it's just going to reduce our competitive advantage in grant writing and everything else.
I
So,
don't expect to win this argument.
okay, I know.
What I hope to do is to stress the toxic danger of this kind of stuff. That's what I'm really trying to do.
Thank you.
And you make us think, Bill. Thank you.
Mhm.
You're making us think.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody, are we ready to vote on the amendment to the policy? Okay.
And the amendment being removal of
Removal, yeah.
2.10.
Yeah. So let's, if you don't mind doing a roll call, Lou.
So Denise Kraus,
No.
Bill Mansfield,
Yes.
Tanya Morrow,
Nope.
Tyler Jasper,
No.
Katrina Erman Newton,
No.
and Dan Davis.
No.
There's 5 yes, or 5 no votes and 1 yes vote. Motion failed.
Okay. Is there a motion to adopt the policy as it's stated?
I'll move.
We already have a motion.
No.
motion
The motion was to amend it.
The motion as not amended is on the floor.
Yeah.
That's what it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. He made the motion in the first place. That's right. Okay. Got it. Okay. So another roll call vote, please, unless there's more deliberation. Okay.
And this is on
Adopting
accepting
it, yeah,
as is?
yeah.
Okay.
Denise Kraus,
Yes.
Bill Mansfield,
Yes.
Tanya Morrow,
Yes.
Tyler Jasper,
Yes.
Katrina Ernman Newton,
Yes.
and Dan Davis.
Yes.
6 yes votes, motion passed.
Thank you for that fun discussion, Bill. We appreciate it.
Thank you all for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to reports.
Okay.
The manager, start.
It's okay. I don't know who I am on most days, so it's okay. So I wanted to report out, of course, all the good news. And, we're, I think, a little bit of shock and disbelief on all our part. We were really thrilled, but everybody was like, is this real? Has it really happened? And then, of course, there was the celebration of, yes, it did pass and we're thrilled about it. With that said, I think I've pointed out a couple things that are real concerns for RVTD in the future and how we deal with going forward and making sure that we meet our budget, that we stay within the means, and that we make this all happen in a kind of concise way that we don't put ourselves in jeopardy financially where we have to cut more service. I want to report out that the rebuilding our transportation vision that the governor has put together, I sit on that committee. There's also the subgroups are all going to be meeting June 1st, which is next Monday morning, to start the real work on how do we get a transportation package together to sell to our state legislators come January of 27. There are a lot of volunteers for this, and I think that it's going to be a bunch of work that I'm a little bit worried about, only because in all of these subgroups, in the visioning group, the legislators have not been part of this. And so again, it's going to be selling them a package deal of This is what we think needs to happen. And there'll be much discussion that's going to take part during 27, during the legislative long session. Everyone is accepting the idea that, yes, we need to bring legislators along. And so that'll be part of our job, I think, as a board, as a community, to say, look, RVTD really supported transit. It's needed. Here's a good example of voting in a tax base, a continuation of a tax base. Our community believes in transit. Now, legislators, you need to think about statewide what we need to do. On what is at jeopardy for RVTD is in the transit, not the transit, in the ODOT bill that was voted down the referendum, in there was a increase in payroll tax for RVTD. And with that came, that increase would have been buying back some of the service that we had to cut. To remind everybody, in 2017, the legislature said, you will put new service out with this money and we'll help make sure that you can maintain it. We can't maintain it unless we do something in some kind of a transportation bill. Otherwise, it's going to be maintaining what we have today. And then this tax money that we've just gotten through the property tax is to add back some little bit of service, but it's not everything. And so we'll have to keep educating people as to, there's two things that failed. One was, our ability to pull down our federal dollars and the state's ability to maintain what they had us build out. So we'll bring both those things back in little increments as we're able to.
Christian, at this
Sure.
point? I'm not doubting the ability of the majority party to pass another law, but I am doubting the ability of the public to vote for it.
That's
Yeah,
correct.
They're likely to dump it again.
There is.
We lost that by, what was it, 83%?
It was huge.
What,
80, I think it was 83%.
That's a big master
It is.
loss.
But I think that even talking with people, first of all, they never understood the transit piece of it. There was nobody that educated anybody on it. They just, everybody just pushed back and just said, let this thing run to referendum, and the voters made the decision. Now I think is a chance for the voters to tell us what they want. What is it you want to see? And I think that a lot of that's going to happen through the subgroups, is happening through the subgroups. But I don't know that we'll come to any conclusion, because it can always be sent to referendum. It doesn't matter if there's a majority. And that's why I've always said that transportation really should be a joint venture of both parties moving forward and looking at what is needed. We have this whole other piece of ODOT. And as a commissioner, I'll tell you, people don't trust ODOT. They don't think the money's been spent wisely. And there's really a misunderstanding. And one of the things that I've told ODOT repeatedly is you need to educate the community as to how their money is being spent. And there is going to be a cleanup component of ODOT. There's going to be a downsizing like we did. Downsizing to basic. What is basic? And that is what we have to carry forward. And then anything that you want beyond basic, our mega projects, our special projects that each community keeps saying they need, those are a totally separate conversation of how we get there. Because they're massive. They cost a lot. And, legislators made that first move in 2017 saying, you're going to do the Rose Quarter, you're going to do the I-5 bridge, you're going to do 205, you're going to do Abernathy, you're going to do these mega projects in the metropolitan area because they're needed. If you ever went on I-5 and got on that bridge and stood there, which I did, you would be afraid for your life because that thing could come down at any given time. It's so old. It needs to be replaced, but it costs a massive amount of money. So those are, again, educating pieces where we're going to have to, as a state, make those decisions.
Even driving across that bridge is scary as hell.
Sure.
Just another quick question though. I mean, you, in your reorganization at ODOT, I mean, it's easy to say we're just going to keep it to what's necessary, but that's our problem, is we have a whole faction of people that believe the only thing that's necessary is roads and bridges.
Sure.
And they would completely cut out all the
transit.
other modes.
Sure.
So I'm hoping that it's going to happen where it's not like that because it's going to be coming from the administration, right? ODOT's going to be proposing it. OTC is going to be approving the reorganization.
So this is what I can tell you about the commission is we believe in a multimodal network. There's not just one solution. It isn't just about roads and bridges. It's about the transportation network. It includes freight. It includes a lot of things, your ports and moving goods that way. It's moving goods and services, people across the state. And so we're going to have to look at every single piece of that and decide what is absolutely necessary and what isn't. For transit, the question I keep asking the transit agencies is, what is your basic? What is it that can move your community and still get people where they need to go without all the bells and whistles, without every 15-minute service, without all these little things that we like, but what is the basic? What can we do? And I think RVTD's done that. We have put out a service right now that is very basic. And if the community wants above that, then we're going to have to, it's either going to have to be statewide or local. So our local community, yes, they have confidence in our transit system. Are they willing to pay more? And what means are we going to use to pay for it? And those are hard questions, but I think that that's what it comes back to. And I listened to comments all over the state, especially on the commission, of hearing people say, well, I absolutely have to have this. Well, you know what? I really love Amazon. And I love having something delivered to my house in 24 hours. And I have Prime, and I pay a little bit extra for that. Is it necessary? No, not really. But so what am I willing to pay more for it? Maybe. But I hear all these kind of conversations all the time like, well, we need an exemption. You have transportation providers are saying, well, we can't deliver it with 20, we don't want to be included in the gas tax. We want an exemption. Well, no, you're using the bridge. You're using the road, you're going to have to pay for it. You're going to have to charge the user, the person who wants it, bad enough. Same with electric cars. Well, I'm not polluting the air, I shouldn't have an exemption. Well, no, still using the roadway. You need to pay for your fair share. It's getting back to what is that? What does it mean looking at that if I want those levels of service? DMV is a good example. Okay, do I like going to DMV and waiting 6 hours? No. Well, then I'll use a kiosk and pay $6 more. So people are going to have to start understanding it's kind of like healthcare or anything, Tyler. When you talk about healthcare, are you willing to pay more? Are you willing to pay for this service? And we're going to have to, as Oregonians, make those decisions. And it's hard because everybody wants everything. But it's not obtainable because the cost is astronomical. So we'll see where it goes. I don't know, Tanya. I don't have the
Work
answer.
cut out for you again. Yeah, I wish I could be a little more optimistic, but
Well, I'm trying to be really optimistic, and that's why going into this levy, I was very optimistic. It's like the voters have said it before, they're going to support us. I'm going to be optimistic, and they came through, thank goodness. But things can turn and paychecks are getting tight. People are feeling the fill, they're starting to realize, gosh, to fill up my car costs me $120. Maybe I don't need to drive this car. Maybe I can ride the bus for some of my trips. But then we have to have a bus service that works. So there's trade-offs on all of it. I don't have the answers. If I did, I'd be doing something different than I'm doing now.
And I just want to add, I've had a couple conversations with you about how I think it's extremely important that transit do whatever it can to come together and get prepared for some really lean times when it comes to people being able to get around by vehicles. So like I said, if you guys could pull your resources to purchase fuel ahead of time, that's something that I think the state really should be doing and looking at.
I mean, it's not only fuel, but even looking at what we are using as vehicles. Is it the most economical vehicle that we can use? What can we do differently? I'm still really interested in the conversation I had when I went to DC with FTA was, look, I need a pipeline of renewable natural gas that comes straight off the dump. And it's going to cost me $2 million for that pipeline. I need a way of getting that pipeline because it makes sense. And it's going to be a way that RVTD can maintain themselves for a period of time because you're going to flare that fuel anyway. What are you doing here? Let's be smart about the way we do it. And then in the meantime, if you're not going to give me an electric vehicle, what can we use? What can we pivot to that we can use? Can we use electric vehicles in Valley Lift? Can we use propane? Can we use, what are the other alternative fuels that aren't going to harm the environment and get people off the road? Gasoline isn't great. You know, dumping gasoline into the atmosphere isn't good either. So I don't know. As gasoline keeps, or diesel even keeps ratcheting up, what's happening is the users are starting to go, well, maybe this isn't the best way of using my money. Maybe I should be using transit. Yeah,
This is a silly idea, but just because I'm thinking about fuel, thinking about the need for transportation. If you're not going to give me this, will you give me, what are you going to give me? And it makes me think about bicycle taxis and how those are more common generally in more urban places, but there are now electric assist bikes and electric assist cargo bikes and other kinds of things. It's like for getting around in town, as much as I will never forgive those little bird scooters for the headache they were at the public library. I'm wondering if there's something in that, like, is there a way to, given that like ridership is a little bit unpredictable, is there something in the idea of a public e-bike taxi or small, those little pedal along bikes, like that kind of things to move people efficiently and minimize your environmental impacts? I don't know.
Well, and I think a lot of that has been tried. We even tried it here. We had e-bikes that got stolen. They were dumped all over the place, and people were just really disrespectful of the whole system. There were scooters, same thing with scooters around here. Of course, it's going to come down to people are going to, at some point, have to respect that and enforce it.
Yeah.
But until we get to that level, people aren't going to make those decisions. I mean, I have an e-bike. I'm probably really dangerous to be on an e-bike at this point in my life, but just because I'm not very stable in my ability to ride a bicycle. It's probably not the best way, but I own one. Will I use it? You bet I will. Do other people, we see it all the time. We see our users of our system, of our bus system using e-bikes. I think that people will get creative and will start looking differently. But right now we're just all so angry we can't even have conversations. What I'm hoping from this rebuilding our transportation vision is that people start talking to each other about this and what's the best way. I mean, I look at what's the best way to move freight? Is it these everything on the highway? Maybe not. Maybe it's by train. Maybe it's by other means. And so, but they cost a lot of money and we've let the system fall apart.
Yeah.
And now it's when you have to rebuild a system. And I'll give you an example. The I-5 bridge, just recently, there is a piece of it that is just going to be for light rail. And my question to staff is, if we can't afford the light rail, it's going to be $1 billion, right? And we're hoping that the federal government will come through with $1 billion for the light rail. If not, can we use that for a fixed guide way for BRT? Well, now we're looking at BRT and it's like, it's almost as much as fixed a light rail.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah. And there's been studies done and now we're like, now what do we do? Like it used to be affordable. But could we run buses on there? Maybe. And will people that ride the bus? Maybe. If that's all there is for their means, it may be the only way they can get around. So I think things will change. It's just we've got to be open enough to have those dialogues to not scream over the top of each other and say this is the most important thing. Is it best that all of our kids are getting driven to school and they live within a mile? No. It's not the best way. But for parents right now, that's the only way because they can't trust their children walking without a mechanism in play. So Safe Routes to School has been trying to move that idea.
And what happened to the funding?
Funding got cut, and the funding got cut by the commission even. It was funding that was actually was sitting there, and it wasn't, we shifted it for 1 year. But again, we have to make these hard decisions. And I don't know what the answers are. I don't.
So what I'm hearing is we should get AI powered vehicles. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
That was for Bill.
Well, I'm not going to say a word because I don't want my union to jump all over me and say, you know, we're going to have autonomous vehicles. But that could be a possibility. There's a whole lot of other moral problems we have in our universe that prevent us from doing a lot of things we do. Like, do you not have a driver on there where all of a sudden somebody could be killing everybody on the bus and the bus just keeps driving down the street and doesn't stop and call 911? I mean, there's a whole bunch of things. Anyway, so right now that I'm going to Salem. I'll be in Salem on Monday, working on the transportation piece of it. We have that. We, along with the reauthorization of a Build America that I'm working closely with at this point. And then, you know, the staff, they just keep doing what they need to do. Thank goodness. You know, we have Kelly running operations. She's doing a great job of it. We've got union negotiations. Everything is still moving. But we have these big policy issues in front of us that are going to be made. Decisions are going to be made that we're going to have to be able to pivot to. And it's difficult. So we don't have all the answers yet, but we're on top of every single one of them. I guess is what I'm reporting out. You know, RVTD's got it going on, and they're very good at what they do, but not every transit agency in the state has the ability to do this. And so we're dragging them along behind us. End of my reports. Questions for me? We do sleep once in a while.
Yeah, that's good. Take care of yourself. Hard work. All right, any other reports from staff tonight? Probably not.
I don't believe so.
Nope. Tim was getting up and now he's leaving. Okay, will the board acknowledge receipt of monthly financial reports by acknowledging whether you did not receive the financial reports? Seeing none, the board acknowledges receiving the financial reports. And are there any general comments or questions from the board? Moving right along, RVCOG report from Bill Mansfield.
Yes, thank you. The board considered an employment contract for its CEO. We all like her. All of us approved of her conduct in the past year, including me. There was the usual parachute, the usual provision about the board has the power to terminate without cause, and it provided for a 6-month parachute. I thought it should be better, that it would be wiser to have 3 months parachute instead of 6. I lost that 2 to 15. I've got a good batting average today. And then we approved the budget. The budget includes quite a substantial increase, but most of that comes from the fact that we're taking over some VA projects, and it's just more coming in and more going out, so it's reflecting in the budget. And then we learned that the Food and Friends, you're probably aware that the Rogue Valley Council of Government is buying a real property from the city of Central Point for its bakery, for its cooking of the meals, for its kitchen, and that is simply in process. It's going to be completed in another month or 2.
Is it near their campus already, or is it someplace else in Central Point?
It's in Central Point. I don't remember
Sure,
where in Central Point it is. That's where it was before.
Okay.
You'll recall that we were leasing real property from a nonprofit here in town, and they cut us out. So now the city of Central Point is being very cooperative with us and giving us a decent price. We're buying it for $1.5 million. That completes my report.
Thank you. All right, MPO, just the typical tip adoption, tip amendment. But then there was also two interesting conversations. One was proposed letters of support for the first bill. I just can't remember the anachronism for it, but, and it ends up, staff did not let us know that there was some controversial aspects to it because it was only after some discussion about, supporting this bill that we learned that ODOT has taken the official position of abstaining at all of the MPOs. So we ended up essentially tabling that, partly because we also learned that there's a new bill. So hopefully we can get a summary of the new bill, including anything controversial, as I asked, at our next MPO meeting. And then otherwise, there's an agenda item to consider who should be the liaison to the RV Act and the alternate. And I'm not sure why, because we had voted on the liaison, but there was almost an effort to make it automatically the chair and the vice chair of the MPO, and we stopped that as well. So that's what's going on. That's about it. Yeah. Okay. Tradco.
So Tradco met on May 7th, and there was discussion of the fact that these visioning groups are forming around transportation and the potential next bill. ODOT is locally very excited about the fact that they're almost done with all their ADA improvements in the city of Ashland. And there was some notes about the passenger counts are going up at the airport, which is exciting. And there was more interest than I anticipated from some of the folks there about, more in line with what you were discussing, Julie, that there needs to be a stronger united voice around what transportation looks like in the state of Oregon. And even some hints that maybe the chambers of commerce could be talking about that and becoming more organized as a more unified voice, advocating for those needs and desires. I think I was the only one there this time, so.
Thank you. Any questions for Karina? And RV Act, was there a meeting? Yeah, there was.
Yes, RV Act met on May 11th, but it was a smaller, shorter meeting than usual. Mainly we had the ODOT report again, and then a lot about budget woes, of course, and then more discussion about some of the big projects that you mentioned. Nothing really very specific to Southern Oregon this time.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? No executive session? So if there's no objection, we'll be adjourned.
Thanks, everyone.
That's yours.
I have doubt that our technique is in good faith.
Thank you, Paige.
I'm not figuring that.
Oh, I'm sorry.